Two teenage best friends go to a pool party on June 24th, 1999. Realizing that they were about to miss their 11:30 curfew, the two responsible teenagers decide to take the short walk home to avoid missing it. It would be on this walk home that they would encounter 6 gang members with savage and egregious thoughts on their mind. Being at the wrong place at the wrong time and crossing paths with 6 of the most disgusting humans that ever walked the earth would end tragically for the 2 girls, with their whole life ahead of them. The death of these girls would also solve the death of another victim just 6 months prior. I know I always say this is one of the worst cases I've ever covered on my channel, but this is definitely up there with one of the worst, if not the worst case I've ever covered on my channel. Let's break it all down. Hi guys, welcome or welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. It's so greatly appreciated, truly is. Before we get started, let me give you my usual disclaimer. This video is for educational purposes only. Please do not take what I say as fact. Please always do your own research and come to your own conclusions. Next, if you have not liked, subscribed, or commented yet, please consider doing so because it really helps me out and I really appreciate it. I'm apologizing in advance for this. Yeah, I'm sorry. I've tried everything. It's the best I could get it. 14-year-old Jennifer Lee Ertman was born on August 15th, 1978 to parents Sandra and Randy Ertman. Jennifer was the Ertmans' only child and she was the absolute light of their life. Her mother Sandy described her as sensitive, modest, and funny. Her father Randy described her as a good kid. He says that she never lied to him, so he never had a reason to worry, and goes on to say that he only had to yell at her twice in her short life, which is amazing because I feel like I have to yell at my 13-year-old more than twice in a week. So there's that. Jennifer had a lot of male friends, but was never big on having a boyfriend. Her mother shared that Jennifer was very proud to be a virgin and that it was incredibly important for her to hold on to her virginity until she found true love and the person she would eventually marry. 16-year-old Elizabeth Peña was born on June 21st, 1977 to parents Melissa and Adolfo. She was the oldest of 3 siblings, and even though she had a rough start at first, by the time she had become friends with Jennifer, she had straightened up her act and her grades. Elizabeth's parents loved Jennifer, and they credit her for turning their daughter's rebellious ways around and putting her on the right track. In June of 1993, the girls were both attending Waltrip High School and had been friends for about 2 years. Self-proclaimed head of the Black and White gang was 18-year-old Peter Cantu. Peter was born on May 27th, 1975 in Austin, Texas to parents Susie and Rudy Cantu. He had 2 older brothers, Rudy and Joe, and a younger sister named Sabrina. Older brother Joe and his then wife would end up playing a pivotal role in this story later on. Peter was described as a good kid, but suffered tremendous bullying from his peers over his speech impediments. He was also an incredibly poor student and would end up repeating the 3rd grade and the 4th grade. July 25th, 1988, 13-year-old 5th grader Peter walked home a classmate of his named Amber. Peter liked Amber, and when the two reached the front door, Peter tried to kiss her. Not interested, Amber pulled away, went inside, and closed the door. 2 days later, on July 27th, Peter went back to Amber's home and began banging on the doors and the windows, calling her a bitch and demanding that she opens the door. This lasted several minutes until he banged so hard on one of the windows that it broke. Peter left immediately after shattering the window, fearing he would get caught. When Amber's father went to talk to Cantu's parents about their son's behavior, his mother Susie made it very clear that she didn't believe the father and simply told her son to stay away from people like that. Okay. November 17th, 1988, Peter would push his middle school teacher after she demanded he come into the classroom. She noticed that Peter and another student were staring each other down, and she could feel a fight about to start. Peter repeatedly ignored her demands before pushing her into the classroom. Once again, Peter did not face any repercussions from his mother. He was removed from the school for the rest of the year, but was allowed back for the spring semester. 17-year-old Raul Villarreal was born on September 25th, 1975 in Houston, Texas, to parents Omar and Luisa. He had two older twin sisters named Laura and Elizabeth. The family grew up very poor. His father was a refrigerator and air conditioner repairman, and his mother was a stay-at-home mom. In February of 1991, at the age of 15, Raul decided to quit school against his mother's wishes and go to work with his father. His argument being that he wanted to earn extra money to help his family. Raul had been kept back twice, so at 15, when he quit school, he was in the 7th grade. He began working with his family and giving his family a percentage of his check every single week. His mother strongly encouraged him to take the GED, but he never did. He would later decide to go to nursing school with his mother and his sisters. All four of them went to school and graduated at the same time, but while his mother and his sisters got hired immediately, nobody wanted to give Raul the chance. This weighed very heavily on his mental health. He began sniffing shoeshine spray to get high and numb his pain. July 24th, 1993, one day before Raul was set to go into treatment, he ran into his buddy, Efron Perez. Perez was born on November 19th, 1975 to parents Maria and Leo and had a 1-year-old sister. His parents' relationship would be short-lived, and Maria would end up packing up herself and her kids, taking off with them, and getting a job as a housekeeper. He would end up going to live with his aunt, and by the time he reached high school, he was an honor student. In February of 1990, Louise would decide she wanted her children back, forcing Raul to leave his aunt's home, leave his school, and start a new school in his mother's district. It would be there that he would meet and befriend Jose Medellin. Jose was born on March 4th, 1973 in Mexico to parents Maria and Venancio. His mother was just 15 when she gave birth to Jose. A year later, she gave birth to his second son, she also named Jose. 2 years after this, on December 13th, 1978, Maria gave birth to a third son named Venancio. Then, a year later, the couple would give birth to a baby girl they named Dianita. That same year, the children's father would move to the United States. In 1994, when Jose was 9, the family would join his father in Texas. June 24th, 1993, 4:15 p.m. Jennifer's father drops her off at Elizabeth's house so the girls could attend their friend's pool party. At 8 p.m., Elizabeth's parents drop the girls off at the party. They say goodbye, promising their parents that they would make it home by their 11:30 curfew. The girls had a great night when they realized that it was getting late and they were about to miss their curfew. They decided to start walking home and take a shortcut through a park and over some railroad tracks. It was at the same time that the black and white gang would be holding an initiation ceremony for Raul Villarreal. Raul was forced to fight several members of the gang for approximately 5 minutes before being judged on whether he would be accepted or not. He was beat by 2 of the members before being knocked temporarily unconscious by the 3rd member. It was after this that Raul would be handed a beer and told he had made it in. Congrats. I'm sure your parents are really proud. It would be about 40 minutes after this that Jennifer Ertman and Elizabeth Peña would cross their path. 2 innocent girls just trying to make it home by curfew, at the wrong place, at the wrong time, and bumping into pure evil. Jose Medellin groped Elizabeth's breast as she walked past him. When she pushed his hand away and kept walking, Medellin put his arms around Peña's neck and threw her to the ground, then dragged her down the incline. It's important to note that Jennifer Ertman could have easily taken off at this point and saved her own life, but she decided instead to stay and fight for her friend. Jennifer was thrown to the ground as well by Peter Cantu and Derek Sean O'Brien. The 5 members began to R-word and beat the girls repeatedly for at least an hour and at least 4 times each. The girls tried to fight back. Elizabeth Peña kicked and Jennifer Ertman bit one of them. After what must have seemed like forever, it was over. Peter Cantu decided that it was too risky to let them go, and because of this, they would have to die. Peter Cantu, Jose Medellin, Derek Sean O'Brien, Efrain Perez, and Raul Villarreal told 14-year-old Venancio to stay behind as they took the girls into the woods, stating that he was too young to see what was about to happen. How kind of you. O'Brien and Villarreal told Jennifer Ertman to get on her knees. They put a belt around her neck and pulled until it broke, then finished her off with a shoelace, all while Elizabeth Peña watched. While this is going on and while Elizabeth is watching, she had a ligature around her neck as well. There's no doubt that she knew what was about to happen next. She begged them to let her go, even telling them that they could get together after this, telling them, we'll hang out after this if you just let me go. When she tried to run away, Peter Cantu tackled her to the ground, kicked her in the face and ribs. After Elizabeth was dead, the gang members stomped on both of their throats to ensure that they were gone. Peter Cantu handed Venancio a goofy wristwatch from Jennifer Ertman's body, telling him, "Take this, I don't want it." Jose Medellin took an earring off of Jennifer Ertman's body and gave it to his girlfriend, Esther. Yeah. She's a lucky girl. She's a lucky, lucky girl, huh? What a boyfriend she had. From there, Peter Cantu, Jose, and Raul all went to Cantu's home. A home that he shared with his parents, his sister, his brother Joe Cantu, and Joe's new wife, Christina. When Joe met Christina, she was the member of a gang that was mainly known for stealing cars. Joe told her that he couldn't continue to date a gang member. It was then that Christina decided to leave the gang, and the pair married 6 months later. When Joe and Christina asked the boys why they were so bloody, Raul told them that they had fun. They had fun. And that the details of the fun would appear on the news. The boys then elaborated to Joe and Christina about what they had done. Not with remorse, though, but with pride. They were laughing and joking about the events that had just transpired. Joe pulled the top of his underwear out and boasted about how he had the blood of a virgin on him now. The boys were unaware, while they were boasting about their gross acts, that Christina had been awarded just 1 year prior to this. That night, after Joe and Christina went to bed, she convinced Joe to call the police, and thank God that she did. Joe Cantu gave the anonymous tip to Crime Stoppers, and 4 days later, on June 28th, 1993, the girls' badly decomposed bodies were found. Police found the partially nude bodies of both girls, clothes scattered all over the place, and part of a broken belt. And even though Crime Stoppers is anonymous the majority of the time, in this situation, they did trace where the call came from. Can't blame them. And it brought them back to the Cantu home. It was there that they would meet Joe Cantu. He would tell them everything that he was told that night and who was involved, including his brother. A shitty situation to be put in, but he did the right thing. On June 29th, 1993, police showed up to the suspect's home simultaneously in order to prevent word spreading to the others that they were about to get arrested, fearing that if they found out that they would hide. They probably would. Once they had all 6 teenagers at the station, police obviously separate them all so that they couldn't corroborate their stories, and they begin speaking to them. All of the teens admitted to being there, but not surprisingly, placed the majority of the blame on each other. It was very much, I was there, but I didn't touch them. I only watched, one of those things. But I'm thinking that even if you were there and you didn't touch them and you only watched, that probably makes you just as guilty as your buddies anyway. Eventually, after confessing to everything, Sean O'Brien would actually hand over the rest of the belt that he took home with him almost as a trophy of the despicable acts that they committed that evening. Later that same day, the boys were escorted to the courthouse for their initial bond hearing. With news cameras everywhere, Cantu attempts to kick one of the cameras. Because of the popularity of the cases, news traveled around the Harris County Jail very quickly. And if you know anything about inmates, then you know that they don't like people who hurt children. And if they find out that you have, they're going to torture you. And I love that. I really do. I love that so much. I personally find a great deal of comfort every single time I hear a story that corroborates this. That same day, the boys had another court hearing. This time when they walked into the courtroom, they had writing on the back of their jumpsuits, courtesy of the inmates. On the back of Perez's jumpsuit, they wrote, "I'm a baby killer." Cantu said, "I'm a fag." And O'Brien's read, "I'm a bitch." Because Uni Medellin was just 14 years old and was willing to testify against the others, he was looking at a 40-year jail sentence. Peter Cantu, Jose Medellin, Derek Sean O'Brien, Efron Perez, and Raul Villarreal were all facing capital, which comes with the possibility of a death sentence in the state of Texas. And shout out to Texas, they don't play that shit. And I have so much respect for them for it. I do. I know it may seem a little controversial for those of you that are against the death penalty. I'm sorry for that. Can't feel remorse for these teens facing death, especially after what they put those 2 beautiful babies through. I just can't. I don't feel remorse for them whatsoever. I can't and I won't feel bad about it. So I apologize if that offends you. But I'm not going to change my opinion. Peter Anthony Cantu, Jose Ernesto Medellin, Derek Sean O'Brien, Efron Perez, and Raul Villarreal all received death sentences for their roles in the death and assault of the girls. Venancio Medellin, who was 14 years old at the time of the crime, agreed to testify against everyone but his brother Jose. He received a 40-year prison sentence. While on death row, the Supreme Court passed a ruling that stated nobody under the age of 18 at the time of the crime was allowed to be executed. So, Efron Perez and Raul Villarreal's sentences were commuted to life in prison with no possibility of parole. Sometimes wonder what's worse. Is death row worse, or is life in prison with no possibility of parole worse? I truly wonder. Perez will become eligible for parole on October 10th, 2029. Villarreal has been denied parole several times already and will become eligible for parole again on September 20th, 2029. Derek O'Brien was the first of the three to be executed on July 11th, 2006. He expressed some remorse before his death, saying, "I am sorry. I have always been sorry. It's the worst mistake that I ever made in my whole life. Not because I am here. That's questionable at best. But because of what I did, and I hurt a lot of people. You and my family, I am sorry. I have always been sorry. I am sorry. You look after each other. I love you all. Be there for one another, all right? But I'm sorry, very sorry. I love you too, all right?" Peña's father was one of the family members that was able to witness the execution. He later said O'Brien's death had occurred peacefully in 20 seconds. "I wish to God that my daughter could have died that easily. Put a needle in her arm and just go to sleep. I wish to hell he could have died the way she had died." Oh, God, this one got me. That got me. That is so sad. That is just so sad. The next one to go was Jose on August 5th, 2008. Before his death, he said, "I am sorry my actions caused pain. I hope this brings closure to what you seek. Don't ever hate them for what they do. Never harbor hate. I love you." All right, Warden. Well, we're not going to call that an apology. So we'll just go ahead and call that his final statement. It's not an apology. Peter Anthony Cantu was the last one to be executed on August 17th, 2010. He never made any kind of statement or apology, probably because he never was sorry. He's just pure evil, and the world is a better place without him in it. Or any of them, for that matter, in my opinion. Adolph Peña said of Christina Cantu, "I thanked God about 1,000,000 times that day. I kept thanking that poor little girl that turned them in. I still praise that woman every day. If it wasn't for her, they probably would have never found them." During the trial, in a shocking twist from none other than Joseph Cantu, police learned that this was not the first time that these monsters had killed. Joseph Cantu testified during the trial of Efron Perez that his brother and Joe Medellin would not reveal the name of the victim, how they killed her, or where she was killed. They only bragged to him that they had done it. The victim would turn out to be 27-year-old mother of two, Patricia Lopez. Patricia was last seen on December 31st, 1992, when she stopped by her mother-in-law, Kathy Lopez's residence. Because Patricia had a past with drug abuse, her soon-to-be ex-husband Joe was raising their 10-year-old daughter Tiffany and their 9-year-old son Joe Jr. At 1:50 a.m. on January 4th, 1993, Houston police officer T.E. Westerman was doing his typical rounds for the night. One of the places on his list was Melrose Park. He would patrol the area because it had become very common for teenagers and homeless people to be found hanging out there causing havoc. While driving around his cruiser, he spots what looks like a hand laying on the grass. So he parks his car and he goes to take a closer look. It's the body of Patricia. She was laying on her back without any pants or underwear on. Her knees were up and she was exposed. She had been 3 times in the back, once in her neck, and then sliced from ear to ear. Her stomach had been cut open and her intestines were lying on top of her. It would later come out that Patricia had run out of gas the evening that she died. She would end up meeting Cantu and Medellin, who told her that they would buy her gas if she would buy them beer because they were underage. She agreed and was then taken to the park where she was then eventually killed. Because the two were already serving death sentences, it didn't matter much in terms of their sentencing. But it did give the family of Patricia some answers, and I'm sure that in itself is priceless to them. All right, guys, if you're still here, thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you, and I appreciate you so, so, so very much. Please like, subscribe, and comment if you haven't yet. You feel so inclined to, because it really helps me out, and I really appreciate it. Until next time, stay safe out there.